Hey bookworms, welcome in. Welcome to my May wrap up. So we'll start off with the stats. In May, I read 13 books. None of them are rereads, so they all counted off of my physical TBR. So my physical TBR this month, I started at 206. I added 10, I read 13, so we're down to 203, which is very exciting. So year to date, that puts me at 57 books read so far this year. And this month I read 5,160 pages. So I read more books in April, but I read more pages in May. So it was a pretty good reading month, I feel like. I read a lot. But I had a lot of time to read this month because I've been off work for recovery from my surgery. Anywho, let's jump into it. So starting off, I started the month of May reading The Sun and the Star Maker. It fit the buzzword for Books and Lala's buzzword reading challenge that she does every month. So this is The Sun and the Star Maker by Rachel Griffin. This was a fantasy and kind of a YA. Basically, it follows Aurora and the Star Maker. It's like an interesting plot. They live in this world where something happened, like a natural disaster, like an earthquake, and part of this mountain didn't get any sunlight, so everything was dying off. So the sun fell in love with this man and gave him a little bit of her power, and so he brings up the sunlight every day and takes it back at night to give them sun that they wouldn't get otherwise, but still a part of the valley doesn't get any sunlight. So the man that the sun gave these powers to, he eventually dies. He's not completely immortal, but he has a longer lifespan, so he dies, and the next Star Maker is what they call him, comes into their abilities. So the current Star Maker finds Aurora. So Aurora's part of the valley where she lives doesn't get any sun, so she uses mirrors to reflect light. That way they can grow crops and things, but they're still kind of struggling. So she's gonna marry this guy and get this magical line built her land that only can happen through marriage, and that will provide them some light. And also her sister is sick. And then one day she meets the current Star Maker, and I think she was gonna kill an animal or something, but he stops her and he's like, "You're not allowed to kill those." So they meet and he's like, "Oh, you're the next Star Maker," because he feels her abilities when they touch, and she's like, "You're crazy. I can't be the next Star Maker because I gotta marry this guy because otherwise my family won't get the light that we need." And he's like, "No, you're the next Star Maker, and if you don't use your powers, it'll kill you." So he tells her family she's the next Star Maker, she needs to come with me so I can train her, otherwise she'll die because her powers will eventually manifest so strongly that it will kill her if she doesn't know how to use it. And she says, "Well, I'll go with you on two conditions. One, you have to heal my sister, and two, you have to marry me so we can still get the line to our land that gives my family this light." Anywho, she goes to live with him, learns how to use her powers. It was a cute, fun book. It was an interesting plot, but I didn't really feel connected to the characters. It just took me forever to get through. It's not that big of a book, but it just took me almost half the month just to read this book. I think I gave it a 2.5. It could be a generous 3. It was entertaining and good, but it wasn't my favorite. But I do love Rachel Griffin. This was probably my lowest rated book of hers that I've ever read, but I do love her writing. She's got very beautiful writing, but I just preferred her other books better. But she's still an auto-buy author for me. And the fact that she wrote this after getting a TBI, because she got a concussion, the author did, Rachel Griffin, and was not able to do anything for a while, wasn't able to read, look at computer screens, write. It was a really bad one. And so the fact that she was able to write this while going through that, I think is just amazing. And like I said, she's one of my favorite authors. I just think it's amazing that she was even able to write this. So it wasn't my favorite, but again, love the author. The next book I read was Chasing the Wild by Elliot Rose. I got this from my friend Maddie. We had a little girls retreat and we all brought books that we thought each other would like and had a mini little book fair, book swap. It's a very pretty book. It's basically about this girl. Her name's Layla. Pretty much the story starts off because her ex leaves her and she's like, "Good riddance, I'm going to school to be," I think she's going to school to be a vet anyways. And so she's like, "Bye, Felicia," But he owes her money. She's got bill collectors coming after her. She owes thousands of dollars because he's just spent her money and left and she didn't know about it. So she goes to where she thinks he lives to get the money and stuff. And then she's also got stuff that she needs to drop off for him because they just broke up. So he's like, "Yeah, you can drop off my stuff and I'll give you some money." Well, then on her way there, she finds out that he's taken more of her money than she thought, and she owes these debt collectors. And so she shows up and it's her dad that answers the door. And basically, long story short, they agree that the dad will pay the son's debt because he like splits, and in return she will work for him as like an internship kind of thing for school, because there's like a bad storm that comes in and snows her in and she can't get to the other place she was going to intern at. So he's like, you can intern for me and I'll pay this debt. Your internship will last a couple weeks and then you can get back to like your original plans of going back to this college and go on to your next internship. That's the pretty much the base plot of this book, but they end up falling for each other. But the whole thing is like, there's an age gap, but it doesn't bother either of them. But the whole hang up is he doesn't want to be with her like long term, and he doesn't want to get emotionally invested because he thinks his son will be upset, and he's like trying to rebuild his relationship with his son. Spoiler alert, the son does not care. It does have it happily ever after. It is pretty good. It's just a little cringy. I think I gave it 3 stars because like she calls him daddy, and like I don't like that. That's just not my thing. You might like it, but it's just the writing was a little cringy. The plot was good. It's like, you know, I enjoyed it, not my favorite. The next book I read was The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker, and I started this for a vlog. I really liked this one. I gave it 5 stars. It follows Calla and Jonah. So Calla finds out that her dad has cancer, and she's kind of a city girl, and her mom's a city girl, and her mom left her dad a long time ago because she didn't want to live in the Alaska wilderness. So she doesn't really have a great relationship with her dad. So she finds out he has cancer and goes back to spend time with him. And then she meets Jonah, and at first he's an asshole, but then we find out that the day that he picked her up was the day he found out about her dad's cancer, and they're really close, and so he was just having a terrible day. And then she comes to town and she's like, I need soy milk and my luggage is lost and I need my outfits and stuff like that. Well, in her head, she's got an allergy. She can't have dairy. She's panicking because she only has 1 pair of clothes. She doesn't know anybody there. She doesn't know their culture. She doesn't understand their way of life. And she's like just panicking because like she doesn't have her stuff. Her dad's sick. They don't have a good relationship. And in his eyes, she's being a spoiled brat. And so he's kind of mean to her. But then as the book goes on, they figure each other out and they're nicer to each other and they build a relationship. But then she's like, oh, do I want to stay here with you in this Alaskan wilderness? Because I'm a city girl, you know, like that's not what I'm used to. And are we making the same mistake my parents made a long time ago? And anywho, it's just a really good book. I really liked it. I gave it 5 stars. I'll probably continue on with the series. I don't have them on my physical TBR, but I'll probably read them on Kindle at some point. Definitely recommend this. The next book I read was also in my vlog. It's The Legacy by L. Kennedy. This was the last book of the off-campus series. And then I don't know if the Briar U series is like technically a continuation of these, but technically I finished a series. Okay, a win is a win. I don't know why I'm being so aggressive about that, but I read The Legacy and it was very cute. It basically follows all 4 couples from the off-campus series, and like each part of the book is following each couple as they go through like big life changes, and I just really liked it. I felt like it was a really good ending to the series. Very good book. Cute, fast, easy read. I really liked it. Next I read Dirty Curve by Megan Brandy. The Spinner Wheel chose this for me in a vlog, and I think I settled on 3 stars. I didn't really like the beginning, and I went over all my feelings about this in a vlog. It follows Tobias Cruz and Meyer, and she's supposed to tutor him because he's this big baseball pro and blah blah blah. He's an asshole for the first half of the book, so I didn't like it, and then he just magically becomes this great guy, so I liked the second half of the book a lot. Not a lot, but it was good. So I kind of felt like meh about this book. Like, it's good. It's an easy read if you want to listen to it on audio, but it's not my favorite. Then I read Catabasis, and I did not read this in a vlog, so I'll go a little more in depth, but basically it follows 2 students. There is Alice Law and I have a terrible memory, Peter Murdoch. Do you ever read a book and then a few days later you go to describe it to somebody and it's like blank, like you never read it? So this follows Alice and Peter, and they basically, the story jumps in very quickly and tells you very quickly that Alice accidentally sent her professor, Professor Grimes, to hell. Like, she killed him. When anyone dies, they go to hell and they have to work through their tier level that they are sent to, like basically the 7 deadly sins kind of thing. They have to work through whatever they're guilty of, and then they're reincarnated. Well, Peter and Alice are panicking because he's this amazing professor. They only went to Cambridge because of him, and they're like, if he dies, we lose our advisor, and basically we'll have to either find a new advisor who's not great, or we'll have to redo our learning somewhere else. And they're panicking because they're like, we've already went through hell with this professor because he's an ass, and we're almost done, and we're almost to the point where we're going to graduate and get jobs somewhere. And a recommendation letter from from him would basically guarantee them a job anywhere. So they're like, do we start over or do we go to hell and save him so we can have great careers? They go to hell to find him. And the whole book is them going through different tier levels of hell because they're like, we don't know where he's at. And they're like guessing where they think he would be, whatever he's guilty of. And so they're going through all these tier levels. And it seems like at each level there's things that they have to like overcome, either obstacles in hell, or they have like big basically conversations and like realize things about each other because they start off like not really liking each other, and you kind of feel like there's some bad blood between them, and then we figure that out, like what that is and what all that's about. And I won't spoil the end, but the end was good. Like I was happy with the ending, and the beginning really had me interested, but a lot of the middle parts of them like going through hell I was bored with. It gives like dark academia vibes. It was good, entertaining, kind of boring. Probably recommend the audio. Also the audiobook, it was good, but at the end, so they go from dual narration to where like the female narrates one chapter and she narrates everything, even the male voices, and then they go to one chapter will be narrated by a male voice and he'll narrate everything, even the female voices or whatever. And I like that. They're both good narrators, and the audiobook was good. But then at the end, in the very last little bit, it changes to duet narration where the female narrator narrates the female parts or the story, and then the male narrator comes in and narrates the male voices, like when Peter speaks and stuff. And I really liked that, and I really liked the ending, the way they did that. So yeah, the ending was good, but just parts of them going through hell were boring. And I kind of read through online like other people's reviews, and it feels like a lot of other people had the same vibes, like the same feelings about it. So gorgeous book. I'll probably unhaul, which makes me really sad because the book is gorgeous and it's really good quality. Like whatever publisher this was from, Harper Voyager, this book is like very good quality, very beautiful. So I'm kind of sad that I didn't love it more. And then I read The Rebel King and the Kingmaker by Kennedy Ryan. I liked these a lot more than I thought I would. I picked them up originally because the Kingmaker fit the buzzword this month, Books and Lala's buzzword readathon reading challenge that she does, because the buzzword was make, maker, making, makes, that kind of thing. So I picked this up, and I've had these on my TBR forever. I got them out of that bookworm box where Colleen Hoover, back in my Coho days, she teamed up with a bunch of authors and put together a bookworm box, and all the books had special edition covers and were signed. And then I don't know if you heard that, but my Amazon driver just pulled up and was talking to my front door. I don't have a Ring doorbell. That was so funny because I'm in my library, and it's the window is like right up by the front door, and I heard a plop where he put my boxes down, and then he says, "To today, everybody have a great night, thanks," and walked off. And I'm like, that was so nice, but I don't have a Ring doorbell. How cute. I read The Rebel King and the Kingmaker, and I really liked these a lot more than I thought I would. I thought it was just going to be some smutty romance, and it is a smutty romance, but there's a lot of sustenance in the plot. So this follows Lennox Hunter and Maxim Cade, and he comes from this very rich family, but they get all their money because they have this like oil like pipeline business where they like lay down pipelines and stuff, and they're like billionaires. They get a lot of money from that. And he's bound to determine that it's terrible for the environment and he doesn't want to make money off that. And his dad's like, BS, you're gonna work for me one day, blah blah blah. So convinces him to go to the site where they're laying down this new pipeline. Well, there's a protest going on because they're laying it down in indigenous land, and the female main character Lennox is from the Apache tribe, and like it is very sacred land to them. They do all their like ritual like religious ceremonies there. There's burial grounds there, and so they're protesting, and she's a part of the protest, but she's only 17. And he goes with his dad to see this and sees dogs going for them, and he just jumps in the protest and like stands with them and protects Lennox from this big German shepherd that goes to bite her and stuff, and they all get arrested together. And of course Maxim's dad bails him out, but they just like have that spark when they meet, and then he finds out she's 17 and like scoots away from her in the jail cell. And anywho, they separate, but they meet years later in Amsterdam and like rekindle. And at this point, it's like 4 years later, they have a romance that goes on for a week, and he's like, listen, this can't ever go into more, because he had gotten his PhD, but he was going on like an Arctic expedition. It was really important to him. And so they have this week-long romance, and then she ups and leaves at the end of the week because she got a really good job offer. And so they think they're never going to see each other again. And then they meet years down the road. She gets a really good job offer. She's working with this guy who, like, he's on a political campaign to be the governor, but like it's also a lot of like environmental like protests and things like that. So she goes to work with him, and she ends up getting a career in like running political campaigns for people, and she's like very successful. And then she finds out who he is, and it kind of like breaks them up. And then lo and behold, his brother's gonna run for president, so he wants her to work for him. They kind of rekindle. But it was very good, and the plot was very good. Like, it just had a lot of meat to it, but the romance was also very good. So really liked this one. And then the second book picks up with something tragic happening. So this kind of talks a lot about missing and murdered Indigenous women. And so it kind of dives into that. Like, her mom, it tells you very early on in the first book, was one of those missing and or murdered Indigenous women. They don't really know because they never got back her body, but it's been so long, there's, you know, it's like they're just like, she's probably dead. So it's very sad. And in this book, it kind of goes into something like, the book starts off with something very scary happening to Lennox that kind of goes along with that part of the story, and then it goes further, like further into the story, there's something very sad and tragic that happens to one of the other characters and just shakes them up a lot. And this book is like they're together, but they have to deal with all these terrible things. But then it gets kind of cringy because you know how like sometimes like romance books will go into like, it's a romance and it's got all this, you know, this happening in the plot, but then all of a sudden this crazy stuff happens, and it's like, it just kind of like is a whirlwind of like crazy stuff happening. It takes you kind of out of it. Like, all of a sudden he's running for president, there's this guy after them, and they have to kill him, and like it just gets kind of crazy. Like, spoiler alert, but it just gets kind of wild. So I liked it, but I liked the first book more. Next, I read Broken Dove by Danny Francis. I was very much looking forward to this. It's a new release that came out this month, second book of Silver Elite. I was very much looking forward to it. And all I have to say, I have more to say, but the first thing I want to say is I think that Danny Francis is really Rebecca Yarros, because motherfucker, there ain't no way that you're ending a book on a cliffhanger like this. The first book ended on a cliffhanger, but this ended up on a major cliffhanger. There's no fucking way that you can do a love triangle and a cliffhanger like that unless Rebecca Yarros is writing it, because I don't even like love triangles, but I liked the love triangle in Fourth Wing, and I liked this love triangle, okay? And I don't like love triangles, and there's only one woman who's ever made me like them, and that's Rebecca Yarros. And then the fucking cliffhanger? Rebecca! Have you guys ever seen The Vampire Diaries where that guy's like, Rebecca? That's me, okay, yelling at Rebecca Yarros, because I feel like she's behind this somehow, some way. Probably not. I'm probably losing my mind, but anywho, Broken Dove, book 2 of Silver Elite. It follows Ren after she goes to the uprising, and I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but it's just complicated because she leaves Cross behind. Let me just preface this by saying, if you haven't read the first book, you're going to want to skip, because I'm not going to spoil anything, but I don't want to spoil the first book either, so just skip, okay? But she leaves Cross behind at the end of the first book, so it's just her dealing with, like, she's gone to the uprising, she can never go back to the wards because they'll kill her, and she doesn't belong there anyways, but she leaves Cross behind, and she loves him, but he can't go to the uprising because they'll kill him there, so it's just this whole thing. And then there's a love triangle, which I'm not going to spoil, but it's very good. And then the ending is just fucking insane, okay? So I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. There were a couple little bits that were boring to me, but overall, I freaking loved the characters. I loved the world, the plot, everything. I loved the romances, all of it. And I originally rated Silver Elite 4.5 stars, just because I thought it was a little cringy, like when they say keen all the time, or like the cussing, they say hellfuck. I don't like that, okay? But reading book 2, I'm like so invested in the characters and the world that I just bumped them both up to 5 stars because I just love them so much. I think about them all the time. So they're both, I'm just gonna bump them up. They're both 5-star reads for me. Loved them, loved it. I need book 3 ASAP Rocky, which is really not feasible because this just came out, but I need it. I need it. Next, I read Hot Shot. I got this in a giveaway, and this follows River Selby. they were a hotshot in California for 10 years, and this is just the retelling of being a hotshot in like a male-dominated field and all the things that go along with that. It was interesting. It was a good audiobook. There was a lot of facts and stuff in here, like a lot of factual information that just kind of like made the story a little slow and boring at times, but her life story was interesting. I got the audio free on Libby, and I got this sent to me, so I can't, like, I did an immersive read and like did both at the same time, but it was interesting. Nonfiction, so I don't rate nonfiction, but a good little audiobook. Next, I read The Chase. I started like a weekend, like I just wanted to read all weekend, so I did like a weekend reading vlog. I finished The Hot Shot in that, and I read The Chase. This is book 1 of the Briar U series that follows the off-campus series, so they're different characters, and this follows Dean's sister Summer and her romance with Fitz. I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it. She's funny. I liked the romance. It gave like Legally Blonde vibes, so it was just a very fun read. They're both in college and they're roommates because Dean and all the characters from the off-campus series have moved on and moved out, and so it's different people living in their house that they lived in the off-campus series, but Dean gets Summer a room, and so she's rooming with all these guys, and so it's just fun. Next, I read The Fine Print. This has been on my TBR forever, and I got it in the spinner wheel, but also I just, thought it was finally time to knock some of these books off my TBR, and I'm really glad I picked this up finally because I really liked it. I gave this a 4 stars. This follows Rowan and Zara, and Rowan basically gets told by his grandfather that you have to go and figure out what needs to be improved and then spend 6 months there. Like, you have a timeline of how long you have to do this. You have to figure out what needs improving, take it to the board, make a presentation, and if they vote yes or no, they'll either vote you out and the dad will get all the shares of your money in this company, or they'll vote yes and you'll get to keep your shares and keep your job, basically. So he goes and spends 6 months at Dreamland, which their grandpa built this whole company. It's basically like an amusement park, but it's like internationally, like they've got places everywhere and it's internationally known, and they do other things, but this is like the main part of their business. And so he goes there and is like, I'm gonna improve the rides or build some big fancy ride. But then he starts to realize that there's more to Dreamland than meets the eye. Like, it's the people that work there that are so amazing, and he bonds with Zara, but he's an asshole, but she's fun and like quirky and like grumpy sunshine, and he starts texting her like pretending to be someone else because he doesn't want her to know that he's the guy like that's helping her with her proposals and stuff. And so she thinks she's texting someone else, which I love that plot in a book. I love that trope where they're talking but one of them or both of them don't know who they're really talking to. So anywho, they just build a relationship. Come to find out, Zara was really close to his grandpa, which he doesn't know about. It's a really good book. I really liked the characters. Like, I didn't think I would like the plot like of a theme park or whatever, but it was really good. So I gave it 4 stars. And then last but not least, I read Enemies by Tishan. Again, I've had this book on my TBR forever, and I thought it was just going to be some romance book. And as I've gotten older, my tastes have changed, so I'm like, am I really going to like it as much as I would have if I read it a few years ago? But basically, this follows Dusty, and she moves away from her family and moves into this college house. And she's very much introverted, and all these people are like extroverted, and there's football parties and all this stuff all the time. She's like, oh god, here we go. Like, I'm not going to like living here, but she like makes it work. And then her childhood best friend is now like a famous football player in the NFL, and his name is Stone. And something very tragic happens, and he breaks the news to her that it happens, but they haven't talked in several years, so they're kind of estranged. And so she's like, why the fuck are you here? And then he tells her the news, and it's like this whole thing. And then he kind of helps her through all the emotional stuff. But anywho, it was good. Again, not my favorite read in the world, but it was interesting. A good way to spend an afternoon. So I rated it 3 stars. So those are all the books I read in May. I'd say my favorite read of the month was definitely Broken Dove. I don't know. I'd say my least favorite was either Hot Shot or The Sun and the Star Maker. I don't know. That's kind of a hard one, but I feel bad talking negatively about the books. It was a good reading month, and I'm looking forward to June. You can see my June TBR right here. And then also I'm adding books to my physical TBR this month. I've got a bunch of books that I ordered that are going to be here today, so I might read some of those. I'm super excited. Comment below and let me know if you've read any of those books and what you thought about them, or what your May reads looked like for you. What was your favorite read for May? And if you don't know what to comment, just comment your favorite emoji. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you in the next video. And in the meantime, I'm sending forehead kisses and good reading vibes. Bye!